In Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and every regional town across Australia, independent mechanics are breaking their silence. For years, they've watched customers get blindsided. Now they're naming names. 8 cars they genuinely refuse to work on. 8 vehicles that turned their workshops into graveyard shifts. And the reason they're speaking out now isn't about reputation. It's about conscience. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't clickbait designed to get you angry at car manufacturers. This is what happens when a mechanic, someone who's spent 2 decades building a business, earning trust, fixing problems other shops can't touch, looks you in the eye and says, "Don't buy that car." When it happens once, it's an opinion. When it happens across every independent workshop from the Sunshine Coast to Adelaide, from Brisbane to regional Victoria, it's a pattern, it's a warning. These mechanics have reputation on the line every single day. Their business survives on word of mouth and customer satisfaction. They aren't making statements lightly. They're not trying to get clicks on social media. They're making a calculated business decision that the reputational damage of working on these 8 vehicles exceeds the revenue they generate from servicing them. That's how bad the situation has become. It's economically rational for experienced, skilled mechanics to refuse work on entire vehicle brands and models. The cars we're about to break down aren't just unreliable. That's almost quaint at this point. Unreliable means it needs repairs. These 8 vehicles are something worse. They're financial traps disguised as affordable. Transportation. They're engineering disasters wrapped in marketing. They're the reason customers sit in waiting rooms trying not to cry when they see the repair estimate. And Australian mechanics have collectively decided the suffering stops now. Start with the Nissan Juke. On the surface, it's perfect bait. Affordable entry-level SUV, Japanese brand, looks trendy. The sales room lighting is flattering. The APR is tempting. What dealers don't mention is the timing. Chain sitting inside that engine like a ticking clock. More specifically, they don't mention that on certain model years, particularly the 1.2 DGT variants, the timing chain has a manufacturing defect that causes it to fail prematurely. We're talking about cars that haven't even hit 40,000 kilometers on the odometer when the engine starts to rattle. Mechanics describe it like this. You're driving, everything seems normal, and then you hear it. A distinct metallic rattle from the front of the engine. It sounds like someone's shaking a tin can under the hood. That's the first warning sign. Most owners ignore it. They think it's nothing. They turn the radio up. Then one day, the engine just dies. Not gradually, dead. The timing chain has stretched past the point of recovery, and now the internal components of your engine are making contact with each other. Bent valves, spun bearings, metal scoring on the block. The interference engine design means this failure isn't a $50 fix. It's a complete engine replacement. The repair costs are breathtaking. Labor alone runs between $900 and $1,200, sometimes higher. Parts for a new engine take weeks to arrive. And that's if Nissan even acknowledges the problem, which increasingly they don't. Owners who've reported this issue say the dealership initially claimed it was an isolated incident, a defect specific to their particular car. Then the service manager admitted it's a widespread problem. Nissan stopped producing the 1.2-liter engine in 2017. They knew. They stopped making it precisely because of this issue. Yet the cars are still on Australian roads, still being sold used, still trapping buyers who don't know what's coming. Consider the real-world scenario. A family buys a Juke with 60,000 kilometers on the odometer. It looks clean. The price is right. They're told it's been serviced regularly. They drive it for 2 weeks, put another 500 kilometers on it, and the rattle starts. They take it to their local mechanic. The mechanic immediately recognizes the sound. Independent mechanics won't touch them anymore. Not because they lack the expertise, but because the job is a money pit that destroys customer relationships. You replace the timing chain. The customer drives it home relieved. 3 months later, the same rattle returns. The chain wasn't the real issue, it was a symptom. Now you're looking at explaining why the same problem keeps happening. And the customer is looking at you like you've personally betrayed them. After the 5th or 6th Juke comes through the door with the same catastrophic failure, mechanics make a decision. They stop accepting them. They refer customers elsewhere. They tell anyone who will listen not to buy a Juke. The Volkswagen T-Roc is a different kind of nightmare. The problem here isn't hidden until 40,000 kilometers. It's baked into the engineering from day one. The 1.5 TSI engine uses cylinder deactivation technology that works by shutting down certain cylinders under light load to save fuel. In theory, brilliant. In practice, on this particular engine, the deactivation mechanism is fundamentally flawed. It causes carbon buildup, valve deposits, and eventually catastrophic engine damage. Volkswagen also equipped the T-Roc with a DSG automatic transmission. DSG stands for Direct Shift Gearbox. It's a dual clutch system that Volkswagen touts as responsive and efficient. The reality is that this transmission has a dark history across multiple VW models. Owners report shuddering, jerking, loss of power, and complete transmission failure. The cost of replacing a DSG? You're looking at $4,000 to $7,000, sometimes $8,000 if parts are hard to source. Problems. Oil gets dark and degraded faster. The engine runs hotter. Performance suffers. The check engine light starts flickering. By the time the owner figures out what's happening, they've already spent money on diagnostics, sensor replacements, and software updates that don't fix anything. Mechanics describe the T-Rock as a slow-motion financial hemorrhage. The car operates fine for the first 15 or 20,000 kilometers. Then the problems start becoming apparent. Subtle at first. A tiny hesitation in acceleration, a slight shimmy through the transmission on moderate load. Most owners think they're imagining it. Manufacturers depend on this. They know that by the time the owner is certain something's wrong, they're deep into ownership with repair costs that dwarf whatever they might have saved on financing. The T-Rock is particularly problematic because the warranty periods don't align with when failures typically develop. Owners find themselves out of warranty right when repair costs escalate dramatically. Here's what mechanics told us directly. Take a Volkswagen Golf as an example. It has an oil leak. While it's under warranty, you bring it back to the dealership. They fix it for free. You drive away thinking Volkswagen stands behind their product. Then the odometer hits 100,000 kilometers. That same oil leak comes back. Except now it's out of warranty. Now that same repair costs $1,000, sometimes more depending on what's caused it. The customer feels betrayed. The mechanic feels helpless. And Volkswagen is counting on customers not knowing this beforehand. Move to the Fiat 500X. This little SUV almost defies belief in how badly engineered it is. The timing chain, yes, another timing chain catastrophe, is designed in such a way that it fails at a specific mileage point. 40,000 kilometers. Not occasionally, not in rare cases. This is a pattern. It's so consistent that mechanics now treat any Fiat 500X that walks through the door as a ticking time bomb with a known detonation date. The reason is basic negligence in engineering. The timing chain tensioner is positioned and designed with such poor tolerances that wear happens rapidly. The guides that control chain tension degrade faster than they, except Fiat's parts pricing is notoriously high. A replacement engine for a Fiat 500X costs significantly more than equivalent Japanese vehicles because the parts supply chain is fragmented and expensive. Mechanics describe Fiat ownership as a slow-motion financial disaster. The car seems fine for 20,000 kilometers. Everything's under warranty, so you're not paying for anything. Then you hit 35,000 kilometers. You start feeling slight vibrations, small hesitations on acceleration, nothing dramatic enough to justify an expensive repair. You're second-guessing yourself. Then you hit 40,000, the chain fails, and suddenly you're looking at a repair bill that exceeds the car's resale value. You can't sell it as a trade-in. No dealer will take it with an engine that's been replaced. You're stuck. What makes this particularly cruel is the predictability. Mechanics can literally count down to failure. They can tell a customer bringing in a 500X with 35,000 kilometers that they should plan to spend several $1,000s within the next 5,000 kilometers. The customer thinks the mechanic is trying to drum up business. They ignore the warning. Then right on schedule, the timing chain fails. The customer returns, furious that they ignored the advice, devastated that the problem is real, and facing a repair bill that destroys their finances. The mechanic has to deliver bad news they already warned about, knowing it won't make things better, knowing the customer will feel foolish for not taking action sooner. The Renault capture represents a different class of problem. The EDC transmission, electronic direct control, is a dual-clutch system that Renault developed in partnership with Mercedes. It's supposed to be efficient and smooth. Instead, it's notorious for shuddering, delayed engagement, complete transmission failure, and in some cases, refusing to engage forward gears at all. Owners report being stranded on highways. The transmission simply stops responding. Restart the engine. Try again. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Imagine this scenario. You're driving a Renault Capture home from work, cruising on the freeway in moderate traffic. Suddenly, the transmission shudders violently. The car lurches, power drops, the check engine light comes on, your heart rate spikes. Is this catastrophic? Is it safe to drive? You pull over, everything seems fine. You restart the engine. The transmission engages normally. You drive cautiously to the next exit and take surface streets home. You take it to the dealer the next day. They scan the computer. No error codes, nothing wrong. The technician takes it for a test drive and can't reproduce the problem. They tell you it might be a sensor glitch. They charge you several $100 for diagnostics and send you on your way. 2 weeks later, it happens again. This cycle continues until finally, one day, the transmission doesn't re-engage at all. Now you're looking at a complete transmission replacement. The cost? $5,000 to $7,000, sometimes higher. The engine in the Capture, which was co-developed with Mercedes, has its own issues. It's a small turbocharged unit designed to deliver efficiency at the cost of durability. Turbo failures are common. When a turbo fails on a capture, you're not looking at a simple replacement. The way the engine is packaged, the turbo is integrated in such a way that removing it requires removing the engine. A job that's supposed to take 4 hours takes 30. Labor costs explode, parts take time to source, and Renault has a reputation for making this process as painful as possible for out-of-warranty customers. Then there's the electrical system. Renault has had persistent issues with electrical problems across their lineup, and the Capture inherited these. Infotainment systems that crash, dashboard warning lights that malfunction, window regulators that fail, air conditioning that stops working in the middle of summer. None of these are catastrophic individually, but together they create a vehicle that's constantly in the workshop. The Jeep Compass carries its own nightmarish legacy. The Firefly engine is a small displacement turbocharged unit that Jeep uses across multiple models. It's designed for efficiency, not durability. Mechanical failures have been documented extensively. Piston ring failure, timing chain issues, turbocharger problems. The 9-speed automatic transmission that comes in many Compass models is another notorious failure point. It shudders, it hesitates, it occasionally refuses to engage. Jeep's strategy seems to be to price these vehicles aggressively to attract budget-conscious buyers, then let the repair costs become someone else's problem once the warranty expires. Independent mechanics see Jeep owners coming in with damaged vehicles, high repair costs, and diminishing warranties. Jeep's dealer network is also smaller than Toyota or Honda, which means parts availability is worse, labor costs are higher, and customer satisfaction drops. Owners trade in their Compass on something more reliable and spend the next decade wondering why they didn't do it sooner. Land Rover represents a different philosophy entirely. Land Rovers aren't engineered for affordability. They're engineered as luxury vehicles with all the complexity that entails. But here's the critical issue that mechanics repeatedly emphasize. The way these vehicles are constructed means that major repairs require removing the vehicle's entire chassis. Want to replace the engine? You're removing the body frame. I want to replace the turbocharger? Same process. A job that takes 4 hours on a Toyota Hilux takes 30 hours on a Land Rover. Not because the repair itself is complicated, but because accessing the component requires taking the entire vehicle apart. A mechanic at a workshop in Queensland described the process in detail. To replace a turbocharger on a Land Rover, you need to lift the vehicle, remove multiple underbody panels, disconnect the entire exhaust system, remove the engine oil filter assembly, disconnect the intake manifold, remove coolant hoses, and then, only then, can you access the turbocharger. On a Hilux, you remove the battery terminal, 3 bolts, disconnect 2 hoses, and pull the turbo out. Same repair, vastly different complexity. The Land Rover job costs more than the Hilux costs to buy. The cost multiplication is astronomical. A turbo replacement that costs $500 in parts becomes $5,000 when you factor in 30 hours of labor. The customer financing a Land Rover in 2026 has no idea this is coming. They think they're buying a prestigious brand. They don't realize they're financing a vehicle where basic maintenance has been engineered to be deliberately complex. Land Rover has been owned by multiple companies over decades, and across all those ownership changes, one thing has remained consistent. The engineering decisions seem designed to maximize workshop revenue. SsangYong is a Korean brand that's never quite achieved reliable market stability or strong, consistent service support networks in Australia. When a SsangYong vehicle needs repairs, parts availability becomes a critical and ongoing issue. Parts aren't stocked locally, they have to be ordered from overseas. A simple repair that takes a day on any Japanese vehicle turns into a 3-week ordeal on a SsangYong. The customer is without a vehicle. The workshop has their car sitting in the bay, waiting for parts. SsangYong's parts pricing is also significantly higher than competitor brands because the supply chain is fragmented and inefficient. Mechanics make a business decision. Repairing SsangYong vehicles becomes unprofitable. Customers become frustrated. The workshop's reputation suffers because they're viewed as being slow to solve problems. The actual issue, parts availability, isn't the workshop's fault, but the customer doesn't care about that nuance. They only know their car isn't being fixed quickly. After dealing with this cycle multiple times, mechanics stop accepting SsangYong vehicles. They refer customers to main dealers, who often have better parts connections, and they tell anyone asking for vehicle advice to choose something with more established service networks. Peugeot vehicles sold in Australia carry similar issues. The brand's technical complexity combined with parts scarcity creates a situation where independent mechanics can barely afford to service them. French engineering philosophy has always been different from Japanese engineering. It prioritizes elegance and efficiency over durability and simplicity. When things go wrong on a Peugeot, they go very wrong, and fixing them requires specialist knowledge and hard-to-find parts. The common thread through all 8 of these vehicles is this. Each one contains an engineering decision, sometimes multiple decisions, that seems designed to fail at a specific point, or to make repairs so complex that workshop costs become astronomical. Sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's negligence, sometimes it's just the result of prioritizing efficiency in manufacturing over durability and ownership. The result is the same regardless of motivation. Customers get hurt, mechanics get frustrated, trust erodes. What's driving mechanics across Australia to break their silence now in 2026 specifically? The reliability data. J.D. Power just released their vehicle dependability study for 2026, and the numbers are the worst they've been since 2022. Problems per 100 vehicles has jumped from previous years. Premium vehicles are showing especially steep increases. And electrified vehicles, plug-in hybrids in particular, are showing problems at levels that are genuinely alarming. Plug-in hybrid electric vehicles have increased by 39 problems per 100 vehicles year over year, reaching 281 problems per 100. That's not a margin of error. That's a systemic failure. Infotainment systems are now the single biggest complaint. 4 of the top 5 industry problems are directly related to mobile phone integration. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connectivity issues account for almost half of all infotainment complaints. These aren't just inconveniences. When a customer can't connect their phone safely, they're more likely to fiddle with the infotainment system while driving, creating safety hazards. Software updates are supposed to fix these issues, but the data shows that 40% of vehicle owners received a software update in the past 12 months, and of those, only 27% reported that the update actually improved their vehicle. 58% perceived no noticeable difference. In other words, vehicles are being sold with broken software that manufacturers seem incapable of fixing. Mazda's 2026 lineup shows what happens when a manufacturer makes too many engineering changes at once. The CX-70 and CX-90 both use new engines, new transmissions, and new platforms. The PHEV versions have reported consistent issues with EV batteries and electric motors. The new engine and transmission combination is creating problems that Mazda didn't anticipate. The brand reliability took a hit because of it. Buyers thinking they're getting Mazda's legendary reliability are actually getting first-generation products with first-generation problems. But here's the critical insight that keeps mechanics awake at night. The data they're seeing suggests that 2026 represents an inflection point. The industry prioritized electrification and technology integration over mechanical durability. The trade-off seemed reasonable when calculated on spreadsheets. In reality, on the road, in workshops, it's creating chaos. Customers are discovering that the car they bought 3 years ago is now deteriorating faster than expected. Warranty periods are running out right as major problems are developing. Extended warranty programs are becoming increasingly expensive as manufacturers try to mitigate repair costs. The 8 vehicles we've detailed are just the most obvious catastrophes. They're the ones where the engineering failures are so clear, so consistent, and so expensive to fix that mechanics have simply decided to stop investing time and reputation in servicing them. But beneath these 8 are dozens more where the problems are just slightly less severe, just slightly less consistent, just slightly less expensive to repair. The broader trend is clear. Vehicle reliability is declining. The industry's push toward complexity, efficiency, and technology is creating vehicles that are harder to maintain, more expensive to repair, and less durable overall. This is where the recommendations matter. When independent mechanics across Australia are asked what they actually suggest to customers looking for reliable, affordable, repairable transportation, the answers are remarkably consistent. Toyota Corolla, Mazda 3, Toyota Hilux, Subaru, Forester, Hyundai i30, Honda Civic, Mazda CX-5, Toyota RAV4. These aren't the most exciting vehicles on the market. They aren't the newest. They aren't the fastest. But they share characteristics that mechanics value. Japanese and Korean engineering philosophy that emphasizes simplicity and durability over complexity and efficiency, parts availability that's consistent, reliable, and affordable. Dealer networks with established service infrastructure. Independent workshop support that's strong because these vehicles are common and mechanics understand them thoroughly. The maintenance costs on these vehicles are predictable. The repair costs are reasonable. The parts are available quickly. When something does fail, and things do fail on any vehicle, the fix is straightforward and not prohibitively expensive. A customer who buys a Toyota Corolla isn't getting the latest infotainment technology or the most aggressive styling. They're getting a vehicle that will reliably cover 150,000 kilometers with proper maintenance, that won't destroy their finances if something goes wrong, and that won't become a parts nightmare if they need to have work done at an independent workshop. For someone who needs a truck, the Hilux is the clear choice. The engineering is proven across decades. Parts are available in regional areas where other brands' service networks don't exist. The repair costs are reasonable. A customer can drive a Hilux to remote Australia and be confident that if something fails, there's a mechanic somewhere who can fix it with parts that are obtainable. Try that with a Land Rover in rural Western Australia, and you're potentially looking at days of waiting for parts and specialists to travel to you. For families needing an SUV, the RAV4 and CX5 offer similar advantages. The technology is mature, the design is proven, the costs are predictable. Mechanics understand them completely. There are no engineering surprises waiting to destroy finances at 40,000 kilometers or 30 hours of labor hidden inside seemingly simple repairs. This is what mechanics are begging Australian car buyers to understand in 2026. The temptation of a new model with latest features is strong, the financing deals are attractive, the styling is current. But beneath the marketing and the financing offers, there are engineering decisions that will determine whether you're driving a reliable appliance or financing a money pit. The 8 vehicles we've outlined represent the worst of what's currently being sold, but they're symptoms of a larger trend. The entire industry is prioritizing short-term profit over long-term durability. Buyers who want to avoid becoming financial casualties of this modern trend need to research their vehicle choices very carefully. Look beyond the styling and the technology. Look at actual repair cost data. Look at parts availability. Look at what's being discussed in independent workshop networks. Ask mechanics directly. They'll tell you the truth because their reputation depends on it. They don't benefit from selling you a car you'll regret. They only benefit from building trust with customers who will return year after year with straightforward maintenance and occasional repairs. In 2026, choosing a reliable vehicle requires resisting the marketing machinery that's designed to make you want the newest model. It requires choosing vehicles where durability has been proven across years and hundreds of thousands of customer vehicles. It requires understanding that the cheapest financing deal at the dealership will pale in comparison to the repair costs you'll face if you choose wrong. The 8 vehicles detailed here, Nissan Juke, Volkswagen T-Roc, Fiat 500X, Renault Captur, Jeep Compass, Land Rover, SsangYong, and Peugeot, represent the intersection of poor engineering, cost-cutting decisions, and manufacturing philosophy that doesn't align with customer interests. The mechanics, breaking their silence across Australia, aren't speaking out of malice. They're speaking out because they're tired of watching customers get hurt. They're tired of explaining why the car they bought is so expensive to repair. They're tired of being the messenger delivering bad news to people who trusted that buying a car would be a straightforward transaction. The simplest protection is this: buy what mechanics buy what mechanics recommend to friends and family, buy vehicles where the engineering decisions were made with durability in mind, where parts availability is strong, where repair costs are predictable, and where the brand has built trust across decades. It might not feel exciting, it might not give you the latest technology or the newest styling, but it will give you reliability, it will give you peace of mind. And in 2026, when vehicle reliability is declining across the industry, that's the most valuable thing you can possibly buy. Remember that the warranty period is deliberately shorter than the vehicle's expected service life. The manufacturer knows problems develop after warranty expires. They count on customers absorbing those costs. But if you choose a vehicle where the engineering is proven, where decades of production has worked out the initial design,